show wearing a t-shirt, but today's special. And it's because the TEDx people said yes. Look at my t-shirt. Yay. I attended a TEDx event here in Florida and I got this t-shirt, but I made some adjustments because I will be giving a TEDx speech in Camden, New Jersey at Rutgers University on January 22nd. And so I am sharing that information with all of you. Hi, Lynn. Welcome to Heads Together today. Welcome, welcome. So today's show is about this announcement. I teased it a couple of weeks ago, and the TEDx people, they're pretty specific about, like you're able to tell the world once that all the contracts are signed, et cetera. It's pretty serious business. Hello, Denise Buckelman Sheets. Welcome to Heads Together. Happy to have you here. Today's show is about TEDx. It's about the TED programming. In fact, Jen's behind the scenes with me today. Jen, put in the chat what TED actually stands for. I know the E is for education. I meant to check this out before I came on the show. And if any of our listeners know, it's an acronym. And in case anybody doesn't know what TED Talks are, TEDx, there's a difference between TED Talks and TEDx Talks. So if you're not interested at all in what this is, then probably today's show is not for you, but I'm going to barrel forth because I can. Anyway, let's see. Thank you, Denise. Thank you so much for your congratulations. I've been a big fan of TED Talks for a long time. And if you go on TED.com, it stands for Technology, Entertainment, and Design. Okay. Technology, entertainment. I thought the E was for education. Oh, my bad. Okay. Thank you. So, hey, Debbie Richards, thank you so much for your congratulations. If you go on TED.com, there are topics of everything you can ever imagine. There are famous people and not famous people doing TED Talks. The average length of TED Talks are about 5 to 18 minutes. 18 minutes seems to be the maximum. Excuse me. And they do big TED events, live events yearly, but then online, you can watch them for free on any subject that you can imagine. There are some really famous TED Talks out there. Maybe in the chat, you could put some of your own favorite TED Talks that you've watched. I'm a huge fan of the one Steve Jobs did years ago. He did a commencement speech where he talks about connecting the dots. Sheryl Sandberg of Lean In, she did a very famous commencement speech that is done as a TED Talk. I'm pretty sure about that. Simon Sinek, who's a favorite of so many, I don't know if the stat is still accurate, that he's got the third highest watched TED Talk of all time. It's called Start With Why, based on the book that he wrote. And it's a very famous TED Talk. Brene Brown, Mel Robbins. Lynn, you just said Mel Robbins. I didn't even see that you wrote that. And she's got a really famous TED Talk. So, but TEDx events are, the few that I know about are done by universities, that it's student run and it's a subsidiary. It seems to be a branch of the big TED Talks. Robert Sanders, who's my partner, who most of you know, he and I attended 2 local events here in the Jacksonville area where I live. Jen, if you could put up the picture, please, of the event. That was one of the 2 events that Robert and I attended in Jacksonville. And I am standing with my back to the stage, so you can see the big TEDx logo and the the screen. Some speakers use PowerPoint, other people don't. What you don't see on the stage is the big, what's, pretty known for TED, is a big red circle on the stage where the speaker stands. And typically they have a headset, a la Madonna, and no podium, no notes. At different events, if you watch TED Talks, some speakers use actual notes in front of them. Some are on teleprompter. The one that I've been chosen to do, they're requiring that we memorize the presentation. So this was fascinating, going to a TEDx event which was themed. They're all themed. So it was done very much like you'd go see a play. What I've come to understand is that many people in our assistant community have been curious about how does it work? How does it run and all of that? So I thought to just tell you what my experience has been anyway, which is simply mine. And I can speak honestly about it because I lived it firsthand. Thank you, Terry. Thank you for your good wishes. So it was kind of like attending a play. If you've gone to ever a live play, the event is handled in a similar way where you get a program, and in the program, it gives you the speakers who are going to be speaking on a theme. And I recall, I think the one that is pictured on the slide, it was women. There was a theme very much about women. And as you know, I'm very interested in that subject. So in the program, it listed the speakers and with a short bio of each of them. And then there was an intermission, and then it would give the speakers for the remainder of the program. And then after the event was over, the audience, it was a theater, typical theater. After it was over, we would go out into the lobby and get to meet the speakers who we had just heard from in this event. The event that I have been chosen to do is a whole half-day event. So I think the number of speakers Robert and I saw in Jacksonville were probably 4 and 4, maybe a total of 8. On January 22nd at RutgersCamden, I suspect there's going to be more than 8. I think they mentioned sending out 15 invitations to people. So it's going to be a whole half-day event. So it's the kind of thing that I'm sure there will be a lunch break and then people come back. And I don't really know all those details yet. But so Jen, you could take down the photo. Thank you so much. I thought to share with you the story of how it came to be that I'm at this place where I've been accepted to speak at TEDx, because it's kind of an interesting story, I think, that has an interesting lesson. It taught me something, and it was actually the second time that I had something of this magnitude happen as a result of an action. Let me tell you what happened. During the pandemic, I did a lot of reading, and one of the things that I read was my Rutgers University alumni magazine. I'm a grad of Rutgers University in New Jersey at the New Brunswick campus, and I get my alumni magazine, and I was reading it in 2020. And I read about a professor in the business school who I didn't know, and how he was doing some interesting work at RutgersCamden Business School. And I decided, you know what? I'm going to write to this professor, and I'm going to tell him about the work I do with assistants and how I'm concerned that students in business schools, not only Rutgers, but everywhere, are not necessarily being prepped properly for what they're going to face in the real workplace, and especially about managing people. And that premise is based on my experience at Be the Ultimate Assistant, etc. And I'm going to pause for just a second to answer Marion's question. That Marion, they are planning a live stream of the event on January 22nd. And they're telling me that there are only 100 seats in the theater. So I imagine I'll get a couple to offer to people, but I will keep you posted on that. Back to the story, where I'm reading my alumni magazine and I'm reading about this professor at the business school, and I decide to write to him. And I did. And we ended up in a correspondence. And I said, and at the time, it was all virtual learning, including at the university. And I said, you know what? I would love to offer to do a presentation for the business students with absolutely no money, no charge. I would just love to do this so that, we were agreeing on so many ideas around the workplace and around how students could be properly prepped, that I said, why don't we try it out? Why don't we let me put my money where my mouth is, so to speak? It turned out that in March of 2021, I ended up doing 2 presentations for Rutgers.
Hello.
Camden.
Low-Kramen.
Oh my goodness.
Training.
Well, that was embarrassing. I gave one presentation for the students of Rutgers Business, and I gave one for the staff of Rutgers Business. And it was a really great time. It was really fun to be engaging in this material with these students and staff. And then it was over. When it was over, I corresponded with a few people from the staff and a few people from the student body. And then that was the end of that. And the weeks and the months went by until August of 2021, when I received a LinkedIn message from one of the students from that class that I had done back in March. And it turns out that she is the leader of the team at TEDx at RutgersCamden. I wasn't aware that RutgersCamden even had a TEDx program. Not all universities do, of course. And that was really an interesting piece that I had missed in, my correspondence with these students, and I didn't know that they had a TEDx program. So so from that event in March, I was invited to submit an application that I got on their radar from presenting at that event. And that enabled them to say, you know what, why don't we invite her to submit an application? Now, the application process is pretty extensive, but I remember thinking to myself, in life, we do things every single day. And sometimes we have an agenda, about what we want to have as an outcome of our actions. And then sometimes we're surprised at the things that happen as a result of whatever it is that we're doing. And that was a surprise. In a million years, I promise that I had no idea that from my contacting this professor cold many months back to doing those presentations, that it would lead to this. I have to tell you that the application process was substantial. I was very impressed by how deep they ask you to go as part of the application process. And the absolute truth is that I had to write the whole TEDx talk, and I had to put it on video. So I've done it. And that was the submission. Yeah, and there were 2 rounds of applications. You submit a first round with the idea, and then a second round where you actually have to submit a talk and do it on video. So I was told it could be 12 minutes maximum, and it came in just under that. And then for the final talk in January, it can be as much as 15 minutes. But if any of you have ever done that, a talk of that length, it's a lot of memorizing. So I'm not sure yet if I'll have it be 12 minutes or 15 minutes or however many minutes. But I welcome your questions and your comments about this. I felt it was important to share the story because, you know, life is just filled with these surprises. And I was delighted to hear from this student who I had no idea there was any connection at all to TEDx. And I had no reason, other than we were just talking about the business world and the way the workplace is functioning right now. So thank you all for your really good wishes. I want to share one other story, though, about taking action and having something else happen. Let's see. Lynn has a comment. Oh, thank you, Lynn, for your support. That I do know this backwards and forwards. It's yeah, I don't feel very nervous about this, at least at this moment in October. Ha ha, famous last words, right? And in October, I'm not so nervous. In January, let's see what my story is then, right? As I'm deep into memorizing. Then I'm gonna have to channel my former employer, Olympia Dukakis, to sit on this shoulder and channel her when it comes to memorizing. I definitely remember so many days when she would simply, get super quiet in her room memorizing, and while I was busy doing all the other things. I mean, honestly, memorizing is nothing more than a lot of hard work and commitment. This whole thing was hard work. I shared on Facebook and LinkedIn today that the absolute truth is that I had applied to do TEDx talks, I'm recalling at least 4 times over the years, and they've never said yes until now. But what I also have to be honest about is that I have never worked this hard or this long on an application. And isn't that a lesson right there that, when you surprise, when you put in the work, sometimes you actually get a positive result, which happened in this. Who knows? I'm very well aware that there are plenty of people who work very hard on something and still, they don't get the result they want. But it's ironic that this time I never worked harder on something and something good happened. The other story I was recalling as all of this was playing out, where, this series of events led to this. Some of you may recall the podcast that Vicki Evans and I did several months back with Johnny Taylor, who's the CEO of SHRM, the Society of Human Resource Managers. Now, SHRM has 300,000 members. And I remember, and I think I initiated this again during the pandemic in 2020, and feeling frustrated about how too many assistants were underpaid. And I continue to be very concerned about the wage gap and pay equity and pay discrimination, et cetera. And I remember thinking one day, you know what? I'm just going to write directly to Johnny Taylor, the CEO of SHRM. I don't know Johnny Taylor. He didn't know me. But I just decided, what do I have to lose? That's what I asked myself. What do I have to lose to try to write directly to him, a man who didn't know me? I didn't know him. And I simply wrote the truth about what I was worried about, what problem I wanted to solve. And thanks, Jen. Jen put up the podcast interview that Vicki and I did with Johnny Taylor and Emily Dickens. And it was so interesting that the day I ended up, I worked hard on the letter to Johnny Taylor and, worked on it and then slept on it and then rewrote it, edited it. Finally, I hit send. It's pretty easy to find people's email addresses in this day and age, right? And every assistant on this call knows that feeling. And don't you know, I seem to recall it was within hours I received his response. And he said, yeah, let's jump on a call. Let's talk about this. This is interesting to me. And that ended up resulting in that podcast, because on the call, we definitely hit on a lot of shared ideas, including the value of assistance in this workplace. And I said, I'd really like to have you as a guest on the podcast, and so we can talk publicly about this. And he said, okay. So what's the lesson? You don't get if you don't ask. What is there to lose? What is there to lose? And that experience actually led me to this one with the professor at the business school. Although it didn't feel like there was much of a risk with the professor at the business school, because, I'm a Rutgers grad. He could find that out pretty quickly. I imagine the university has a database and they can confirm whether somebody is actually telling them the truth about whether they're an actual graduate or not. We're living in such a time where people want things verified, aren't we? So that is my story. That's how it happened. The event is going to be on Saturday, January 22nd at Rutgers University in Camden, New Jersey, which is a campus that I've never been on. I went to the New Brunswick campus. I'm a very proud Rutgers graduate. I feel like I use my education in theater and English every single day, every day. And I'm just delighted that the road has led me here with all of you. Every week I get to do this with you. I welcome your questions, your comments about TEDx or anything that's on your mind right now. I certainly hope I've gotten you thinking about an example of a time when you've taken action and something unexpected or really positive happens from it. I hear examples of that every day and read about them as I'm, reading about just normal people like us in the news who act on something that they feel strongly about. I mean, isn't that what it really comes down to, is having a point of view and taking the risk to reveal what we care about. As I mentioned, every TEDx event has a theme. And the theme for this event in January that the curation committee chose, it's brand new ending. That's what they chose. They said, every speech that's given at this event will have that as a through line, so to speak. And so that's what I did. So brand new ending. It's an intriguing idea, a brand new ending, that they always try to come up with intriguing ideas. And I think they're very successful in doing that. So I hope you'll stay tuned. I will fill this group in on the live stream details as I get them. I don't have them yet. There's a distance between now and January 22nd. And I suspect I'll have a chance to have some people sit in live because the theater holds 100 people. And, there are many other speakers besides me. So Jen, if you could put up the scroll. Thank you. We still have 2 seats open for Be the Ultimate Assistant in Colorado Springs on November 10, 11, and 12. If you have been toying with the idea of joining us, now could be your shot. The on-demand class is still available, of course, at 24/7. Use a coupon code to save $300 if you're interested in that. As part of the on-demand class, we have a live meeting once a month via Zoom, and it's a group call, and it's always a really interesting conversation. Here it says 1 seat left for Colorado Springs, but it's really 2 that we have open. We max the class out at 30 people, and at the moment, we've got students coming from 12 states to Colorado Springs. So super excited about that. A couple of weeks back, we talked about the Global Skills Matrix, globalskillsmatrix.com. I hope you will check that out. That has to do with setting a structure for the administrative staff at your company, a structure for job descriptions, titles, and compensation. Still a big hot button in this workplace that is going bananas at the moment. You've probably read headlines saying that there's this huge talent shortage and that there's this resignation tsunami. That's true. It is. There is. It's not on the scroll, but I just want to put this out there that, and Jen will put this on for next week, is that I'm going to be doing a free webinar with Lucy Brazier from the UK and Lucy Chamberlain. Lucy Chamberlain is also from the UK, and she's a recruiter there. And on Friday, November 5th, the 3 of us are going to be doing a free live webinar on this global skills matrix to talk it out and to, really explore what it can mean, which it's so exciting what it can mean. And that webinar is open not only to assistants, but your leaders and HR and recruiters who will all find it interesting. Anybody who is a stakeholder in this workplace would, I believe, find this conversation interesting about the global skills matrix. We have put our 2022 BTUA calendar on my website. On the workshops page, there's a tab that says work with me, and it's on the live workshops page. Registration's not open quite yet. We're still working on it, but we have posted the cities and the dates for BTUA 2022. The registration for November 5th is on LinkedIn. Jen has been posting on LinkedIn and Facebook. It's via Eventbrite, and it's free, no money at all to register for November 5th. We've got room for 1,000 people, so please bring it. We want you there. We want your comments. We want your questions. So with that, I want you to know that we will be here next Wednesday at 3 p.m. Eastern Time, as we try to be every single week. And I thank you for your support as I enjoy this news about getting selected for TEDx, Camden, New Jersey. And I feel like I'm going to be jumping into the deep end of the pool. That sometimes you hope for something and wish for something, and then it's like, uh-oh, I got it. Now what? Now I have to do it. Now I have to execute and jump in. So thank you so much for being here and for your good wishes. And Jen and I will see you back here next Wednesday, 3 p.m. Eastern Time. Have a great week.